The Israeli occupation military has announced an expansion of its ground invasion in Khan Younis, southern Gaza, with the paratroopers brigade operating under the 36th Division, continuing operations in the area. According to the army, dozens of militants were killed during close-quarter combat, as much of the local infrastructure, including apartment buildings, was destroyed. The military also reported the destruction of a tunnel and released video footage showing two large explosions alongside soldiers advancing through the rubble-strewn streets of Khan Younis. At least 2 Palestinians were killed by Israeli gunfire near an aid distribution center north of the Palestinian Rafah city in southern Gaza. So far this morning, Israeli forces have reportedly killed at least 16 aid seekers across Gaza, contributing to a rising death toll that now stands at 24. Since the controversial aid operation began on May 27th, about 600 Palestinians have been killed and 4,200 wounded while waiting for food at distribution sites run by the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 56,500 and over 133,600 were wounded. Gaza-based health authorities have reported that Israeli military operations in Gaza had killed 28 Palestinians and injured 223 others in the past 24 hours. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has stressed on the necessity of adhering to international law to resolve regional crises and the importance of granting Palestinians their rights. That came during a press conference with his Omani counterpart in Cairo, where Abdulati firmly rejected any plans to displace Palestinians and agreed with Oman on the need to dismiss military solutions in the region. The Egyptian foreign minister highlighted that Egypt aims to host a conference for Gaza's reconstruction following a ceasefire agreement. Abdulati stated that efforts are underway to enhance relations between Egypt and Oman. The Egyptian foreign minister emphasized the importance of establishing a ceasefire between Iran and Israel and highlighted a significant level of polarization in the international arena. Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi has expressed strong opposition to any attempts to displace Palestinians from their land. That came during his press conference with his Egyptian counterpart Badr Abdulati in Cairo, where Abu Saidi highlighted the importance of resuming negotiations between Iran and the United States. The Omani Foreign Minister also emphasized the necessity of respecting international law and humanitarian law. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and Qatar's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani have exchanged views on the situation in Gaza. That came during their phone call, where they emphasized joint efforts with the U.S. to resume the ceasefire, secure the release of detainees, and ensure humanitarian aid flows. They discussed the growing bilateral relations and strong ties between Cairo and Doha that benefit both nations. They also addressed the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, stressing the need for diplomatic solutions. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that he wants to secure the release of detainees from Gaza. Trump also expressed hope for a ceasefire in the region within the coming week. He also criticized Democrats, claiming they aim to destroy the United States.
Doge's the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset.
White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt has said that Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer will meet the White House officials. She added that U.S. President Donald Trump plans to discuss tariff rates with his trade team for countries that do not negotiate with the U.S. That comes as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney informed Trump Canada would not impose a digital services tax on U.S. tech companies. She added that additionally, Trump urged Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to lower interest rates to around 1%, criticizing the Fed for not fulfilling its responsibilities.
Come out from both Israel and Gaza throughout this war, and the president wants to see it end. He wants to save lives, and however, the main priority for the president also remains to bring all of the hostages home out of Gaza. As you know, his tireless effort has brought home many of the hostages, including all of the American hostages who were held there. So he wants to see both things happen, and we're continuing to work very hard to do those things.
Israel's UN Ambassador Danny Danon has stated that the war on Gaza will continue until the release of approximately 50 Israeli detainees held by Hamas. He accused some UN officials of hindering aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has provided over 46 million meals. Danon emphasized that the war cannot end while detainees remain captive. The U.S. has suggested a 60-day ceasefire, proposing the release of half of the detainees in exchange for Palestinian detainees, with further negotiations to follow. At least 22 people, including women and children, and a local journalist were killed when an Israeli airstrike struck a beachfront cafe in Gaza City, according to the medics. The cafe had served a popular refuge from the intense heat, frequented by women and children. The airstrike came amid some of the heaviest Israeli attacks in weeks, which claimed at least 60 lives across Gaza, as Israeli officials prepared for talks in Washington aimed at advancing a ceasefire proposed by President Donald Trump. Israeli tanks advanced into Gaza's eastern Zaytun suburb and shelled northern areas, while airstrikes targeted at least 4 schools, after warning hundreds of families sheltering there to evacuate. The UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, has warned that displaced Palestinians in Gaza are being killed while searching for food, as aid distribution sites become increasingly deadly. In a statement, UNRWA condemned the Israeli-American aid delivery mechanism, calling it a death field where vulnerable civilians are directly targeted while waiting in line for food. The agency stressed that humanitarian sites meant to offer safety have instead become life-threatening. It urged a return to trusted UN-led delivery systems and called for an end to attacks on civilians and full access to aid without political restrictions. UNRWA warned that the worsening situation threatens over 2 million people trapped in the besieged enclave. Displaced Palestinian women are turning to communal bread baking as a means of survival. Other women bring dough and firewood, receiving bread in return. For many, it's a lifeline. As food supplies vanish and aid falls short, Gaza's displaced continue to rely on each other to endure hunger, siege, and war.
Symbolically, the smell of a fresh bread is the smell of hope. So we hope that, we appeal for the borders to remain